Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the John Fontaine channel. We're here, we're going to react to a very important video. Mohammed Hijab is actually speaking to Paul Golding, who is actually one of the Britain first. He's one of the.
He's the main
he's the
guy.
head.
Yeah,
he's the head. Okay.
He's the ex-wife beater. I mean, Jada France. What's her name? Jada.
Oh, is he married to Jada?
Yeah, and he beat her.
He's married to Jada.
Yeah, he was married to her, and he used to actually be physical. And he's a humiliated.
So there's a lot of fitna going on between the likes of Tommy Robinson, the Britain First, as well as the BNP.
So he's pro-Zionist.
He's pro.
Tel Aviv, Tommy's pro-Zionist.
Yeah.
Jada's anti-Zionist. So there's a lot of but you could say in many ways Jada's more principled.
Yeah,
actually,
definitely.
a lot more principled.
Yeah, definitely.
No.
I just thought I caught this last night, and I thought it was very interesting because you're speaking about immigration. There's a lot of talk of immigration now, and what Hijab does here is he's trying to pin him down on what are your actual principles. What do you want? Okay, if we're going to speak about immigration, if we can implement what you want, what are the boundaries? What are the rules and regulations that you want to come in? I just want to show you how he doesn't have no principles.
Saying in the beginning then is what you were saying in the beginning with confidence. You want to retract those statements because you're suggesting now that you don't know the stats, you don't know the sources. So
no, of course I know the stats. You're asking me for written.
So first of all, earlier on in the conversation, he's saying, the country's 20%. It's going to be
basically gets stats wrong.
It's going to be overrun in a couple of years. There's going to be no white people left. Load of rubbish. There's nothing to say that at all.
Written sources.
Not written sources. Just give me any source that we can fact check, that the internet can fact check. You were speaking confidently and stridently in the beginning, right? And you were saying these are the numbers, and this is you are falsifying what I was saying. You were contradicting what I was saying.
All it takes is for people to go and Google these things, and they'll find exactly where I got my information from. It's not a secret. I saw it on GB News recently because Nigel Farage was asked about it by one of the GB News presenters. Are you concerned that the British population
his reference is GB News
has plummeted to 74% of the population? It's going down rapidly. And Nigel Farage replied, no, that is not a concern of mine. So it's
that's not a credible source. And the fact is GB News is not an academic source, but the fact is it's 83% of white people. But then would you consider black people to be British because they're not included in that 83%? So do you think a black man is British or no?
I'll answer it this way. Yeah, where are your parents from?
Egypt.
Egypt. So in my mind, you're an Egyptian. I'm not Chinese. I'm not Japanese.
I'm not offended by that. I'm just asking you. Do you think a black
person?
Then
why should people who come from Africa or the Caribbean be offended when I say that they're not British?
Well, I'm asking you that if they were born in this country, right? So if these people were born just like you were in this country, because surely, like maybe 4 or 5 generations down, somebody came from another country, maybe Ireland, maybe Scotland, maybe Wales. Maybe somewhere else.
The Duke of Wellington was born in Ireland. Doesn't make him Irish. He's a typical English aristocrat.
So
Joanna Lumley, the actress, was born in India. No one claims that Joanna Lumley is Indian. Sure. It doesn't matter.
At what point do we say no? It's interesting. I'm just ascertaining the point here. At what point do you say that someone is British? So how many generations does it have to be? So, for example, like if someone is mixed race, if someone's half black, half white, for example, and their great grandparents are black or white, would you consider them to be British? Or where's the line?
Yes, of course. Like Father Calvin Robertson, he's half Caribbean, half English.
So yes, you consider him to. So then the question is, where's the point? Because he's black. I mean, he's half black.
At what point does someone become or not become Pakistani? You're asking me daft questions. You're almost.
No, I'm asking you. I can answer that question for you.
Yeah,
it's not.
But you're almost sounding like one of these left wing, highly biased, media hacks, trying to get right down into the nitty gritty of who's.
But that's exactly what I want to do. If you want to throw people out of a country, you need to get down to the nitty gritty.
At least know what you're talking about.
Have some principles.
Yeah.
He's just wavering, but he actually gets down to it. Basically, it's about Islam and it's about being white.
Who's not.
No, but there needs to be there needs to be a measure here. So because What I'm trying to get from you is, if you ask me what Pakistani is, you can just simply say someone who was born in Pakistan.
No, it's not someone who's born in Pakistan. It's someone who, for generations, is part of that nation. And
Okay.
in
Well, it depends on
the
how citizenship is defined. I'm asking you about how citizenship is
yeah,
defined for
because
you.
the thing is, right, all right, let's rewind. I've when you're talking about this, if we were in government tomorrow,
Sure.
you have to look at this from two perspectives. One is civic and one is ancestral.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So in a civic sense,
Mm,
people who are born here, even
mm,
people first generation who are born here,
yeah.
do become British citizens.
And you
Okay.
accept that they're British?
No, I accept that they're British citizens, but then in an ancestral, nationalistic way of
Sense.
looking at things,
Yeah.
then people who, in a one generation or two, originate overseas, then no,
Mm.
they're not. You can't look. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
I get
describe
what
you.
you look. I get what you're saying. There's this distinction people are making now between British and English as well. Like people calling Anthony Joshua English, and some people object to that fact. Like in France, for example, they call a black man French. There is no English British distinction, and I appreciate that there is some scope for saying, for example, that you're kind of indigenous, ancestral or lineage based or biological kind of race. It does matter. But the question I'm asking you is a little bit
Well, then
more
we're on the same
specific.
page with this thing. Then
No, no, I mean it does matter. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't. Like for example, many black people would consider with themselves to be black and Caribbean at the same time.
and I
They would.
totally respect that, and I totally understand that. If I was in their position, I would think that as well.
So do you want
Um,
these people out of the country, for example, or is that a
what
misconception?
what we want to do is
Mm,
to reverse the situation. So we've had
sure.
immigration,
Hmm.
and we want remigration. So we would, first of all, we would deport anyone connected to Islamic extremism. And I'm sorry, in my view, you would be on the first plane, being honest.
No problem. Okay.
And yeah, you'd be deported within a heartbeat, to be fair,
That's no
Mohammed.
problem. Yeah.
So Islamic extremists will be deported, illegal immigrants would be deported,
Mm,
and we just roll back the tape.
mm,
People who are foreign criminals, for example, and
mm.
we just roll back the tape until the British people become 90% of the population. That is our official
All right.
policy.
So in terms of like you've said that you respect that if you've got a black person who's half Jamaican, oh sorry, who's Jamaican, whose parents are from Jamaica, for example, or whose grandparents have come from Jamaica, that you respect the fact that they can identify both as Jamaican in a sense because they respect where they come from, but at the same time as British in a sense because they were born here and they only understand the English language, they only understand British culture. So you appreciate that fact that there's a dual kind of identification thing. Why
I
would
think
you?
it's entirely
Yeah,
natural. To use your example, I think it's entirely natural if you've got an average black man in London, a black
yeah,
lad in
yeah,
his 20s, for example, and his parents were from the Caribbean,
yeah.
but he was born here and this is all he knows. I could understand that he's got a level of attachment to this country. Um, but
Yeah, but
like I
you
said,
said you would identify if you in his case you would identify as both British and Jamaican. You accept that for him, right?
well, I don't think you can. I can't see. I see this in the media all the time. British Indian, British Pakistani. You look. There's no such thing. You can't
Why
be
is
an
there no such thing though?
You
But
can't be
so
an
so
Anglo-Saxon Pakistani. You can't be an Anglo-Saxon Mongolian. Come on,
no, but
we're going.
why is it so okay, so let me ask you this. Is it in your view, is it only biological then? Is the only marker a biological marker?
It's ancestral, yes. So look,
So it's yeah,
my parents. Look, I'll give you an example. My parents are British,
yeah.
and my grandparents are British. And if you
Mhm.
did this over and over again, we'd go all the way back to Stonehenge.
No, but
Okay?
this is a circular argument because we're talking about what is it to be British. So you can't say, well, we're British. I'm saying that at what point do you become British? So what I'm trying to say to you is if you're, let's say, for example, half black and half white, the question is, at that point, in your view, would you be British or not be British? How much white do you have to be British? Is the question.
It's not. Look, it's not a matter of being white because if a Polish
Well, it
person.
is. You
No,
were
hold
mentioning
on. Let me
statistics.
speak. Okay, let me
Yeah, sure.
speak. If a Polish person came over here, okay, then they would still remain Polish. They wouldn't be all of a sudden become English, like, and they're white. So it's not a matter. It's a matter of common sense, really. Look, I'm not a Pakistani, and it doesn't matter if I was born in Islamabad or my children were born in Islam. We're not going to be Pakistani, okay? We'll just be English immigrants in Pakistan. Do you agree with that?
Say that again. So say it one more time.
Okay. So if I move...
So, according to his logic, you should be kicked out. Where do you stand according to him?
Well, you're going to get to this because he's like, it boils down to being white. You can stay here, but he wants the Muslims out. So what about me? And where am I supposed to go?
Islamabad.
No one's going to have me. Oh, Islamabad don't have me. Alhamdulillah. They welcome me. But nowhere else, bro.
Yeah.
Moved to Pakistan and had children in Pakistan, in Islamabad.
If they were born in Islamabad.
If they were born in Islamabad, okay, but,
yeah.
you know, they wouldn't be Pakistani and they wouldn't be viewed as Pakistani by the people.
Okay. So here's how I see it, right? You have spoken up, and I've seen that on your Twitter feed. You've spoken up about South Africans' rights, minority rights in white South Africans, correct? You
Yes.
and Elon Musk and many other people, right? So do you consider them to be South Africans, or do you consider them to be Europeans in Africa?
I consider them to be European settlers that have moved from Europe to South Africa in the British Empire.
So if they want to self-identify as South Africans, you say that's an illegitimate self-identification?
See, this has got many...
You agree with the blacks on this? You agree with the blacks?
This has got many echoes with like the trans debate. You know, if I identified as a woman, it wouldn't make me a woman, quite frankly. And
no problem. I just want to see. So you agree with the blacks in South Africa? You agree with the Nelson Mandela's party on this fact that these guys are not actually the indigenous, and therefore they should the far right kind of black parties in South Africa? You agree with them?
Fine. Yeah. Okay. I'll go with that. But I'll tell you what. We'll give South Africa all the ethnic minority population, or the black population, African population in Britain, and we'll exchange them for the Dutch and British ancestral.
But what about the white
settlers.
people in South Africa that
He's just totally contradictory. 1 minute he's not allowing Polish.
Yeah.
Now he's having the Dutch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy, bro.
disregard
principles.
and disagree with what you're saying, and they're saying that we have been, even though we are white and we're South African, we consider ourselves to be South Africa. So are you saying that your view should trump their view, that essentially your will as a white man in Britain should trump their view as white people in South Africa?
Okay, sooner or later, there's a thing called reality, and that applies to us all. Okay, men can't be women, Pakistanis can't be English, white European settlers can't be South African. Okay, it's common sense. I feel like.
No, I know what you're saying.
I'm sure you appreciate.
In a way, I kind of feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
He's
He's
just
incoherent.
He's incoherent, but he doesn't even realize it. He's so uneducated. And I'll be honest with you, I know so many people like this.
So here's where I disagree. It's nothing to do with education.
No.
But shall I tell you what it is? Say an illiterate person, uneducated person can be coherent.
It's true.
Because they're principled. Because he's unprincipled, his lack of education and his lack of, frankly, literacy adds to his compounded ignorance.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Bro, it's nothing to do with education. It's to do with, if you're going to start out trying to bash Muslims and you have an agenda, you're unprincipled, you're going to be as incoherent as he is.
He's crazy.
Yeah.
I think he's punch drunk.
If it's about education,
I could understand if this was after the fight. You know, he could blame it on being punch drunk, right?
If it's to do with education, right? You're not as educated as Dawkins, but you murked him. And the reason why you did that is because you asked him a question which is a principled question.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't have a principled stance, they end up looking like a plonker, like he is.
It gets worse, by the way.
Oh, man.
That's the point where we're trying to see where's the line, because as you, like, for example, in America, right? Do you agree that
the line.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, because I'm trying to get this. In America, black people in America who only consider themselves to be African American, are you saying they should go back to West Africa?
America is a very different situation, because you've got, essentially, it is a country of immigrants, but Britain is not a country of immigrants.
No, but even America, you could go further than that.
Natives.
To the indigenous people of America. Is that what you're suggesting? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The world moves on.
Yeah.
Empires come, empires go.
You know what's interesting about this buffoonery is that he's not getting how difficult it is to follow his trail of thought, because anybody watching this is like, yeah, but you made this point, it contradicts that point, and
Yeah.
he'll just swiftly move on.
And everyone can see it.
Yeah.
It's so obvious.
That's not true, is it? It's just when
How's
they
it not
migrated.
true?
Well, you're clever enough to know there's Anglo-Saxons that came into Britain and all that kind of thing. You're clever enough to know that.
Yeah.
It wasn't always. There were people from Ireland, there were people from Wales that came in, people different parts of Europe that came into Britain. That
Yeah,
there were
of
different
course.
white people
But,
that basically make
but
up.
you-
If you
You know,
Normans, they're from France.
The Roman Empire. Do you know we had a leader of England who was actually from Libya? He's buried in the north of England.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
know that. So
in
he's,
the Roman Empire, he was the governor of England. He was
So-
from,
so
he's
he-
actually from Libya.
so he's ethnically what, Berber or something, or Arab?
Yeah, Libya. Yeah,
Oh.
the original Arabs before Islam.
Oh wow, I
It's
had no
before
idea.
Islam,
I had
bro.
no idea.
Yeah, he's buried up there in York.
Okay.
If you do a DNA test right now, I'm
These guys find this out.
pretty sure you're going to have maybe part Irish, part, maybe Scottish, maybe part, German. It could be any of that. Have you done a DNA test before?
I haven't, no. But what you're saying is completely academic.
Imagine he comes back like 40% Nigerian or something. Send him back.
What if he turns out to be 10% Indian?
You agree that Nigeria, use black Africa.
Because if you look at the Roma people, there's an argument to be made that they're from India, right? Now, originally or whatever, and say his ancestors intermingled with the Roma people, and he could be part
Yeah.
Indian. Like, it's all a mix.
Very possible. He could have been a slave in the Roman Empire.
Black Africa, for example.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a Nigerian race or a Congo race
There is
or a
actually.
Somali race.
To a certain extent, there is. It's
The
tribal.
the Hausa, the Igbo, the Yoruba.
But
yeah.
he's actually supporting the opposite thing here. That he's not understanding. He's also contradicting
Bro,
himself.
it's almost like he doesn't.
No. But look, his argument is that there is a race.
Yeah.
But then he's contradicting himself again, saying
He's
no.
confusing nationality
Yeah.
with race as well, because
But he does mean race. That's the point. 1 minute he's talking about nationality, then
it's hard to,
later he comes and says it's about being white.
you know,
1 minute he's saying no Polish,
Yeah,
but then,
yeah.
then we can have the Dutch.
you know, with people like him, I honestly think if someone was to analyze what they're saying, they'd find it hard to summarize it, because he's just shifting
Yeah.
positions.
This is why I wanted to show this. I want to show where it ends, because
Race is above the nation state, as you know, and all white Europeans share a common ancestry if you go back far enough into prehistory. But that race, if you want to call it, that ethnic group, settled down and broke up into languages and nations and became nation states. So you're saying Welsh people
So
came into
Africa, you said
England,
African
right?
Americans is a different situation, but you didn't explain why. Why? So are these
Well, because,
real Americans
as you
or
know-
they're not Americans? Are they real
As you-
Americans or not?
No, because America is a country that was founded by either black slaves and white European settlers. So it's not the same situation you have with, say, Germany or France.
Black slaves weren't founding they were not in control of the Constitution of America or the Declaration of Independence. They were brought over from West Africa in a slave trade. It was a different situation. They weren't founding it in that sense, in the governmental sense. So you could essentially make the same argument that you're making here about the black Africans going back to West Africa. But you seem to have a different standard for America than you do for Britain without
Of course.
proper justification. But
No,
what's
no,
your justification for that?
If you go back 1,000 years, there was no such thing as an indigenous American people.
Well, there was no such thing as a British. indigenous-
America's
We're different.
250 years old or so.
If you go back 1,000 years, what it means to be a white Briton was completely different in language and in
not
biology.
white English. No, if you go back 1,000 years, you could be
1,000
quite
years,
easily
yeah.
white English.
When did
Britain
Hastings
is
happen?
hold on.
When did
Britain
William the
is a
Conqueror?
political
1066, right?
1066. Yes, the population of Britain was over 2 million, and 8,000 Norman knights came over.
Sure.
It's
So
a-
these Normans, that was
the
about
tiny
1,000 years
speck.
ago, and they came from what is
No,
now.
it's a tiny speck in today's standards. 8,000 people. Back then, that was a lot of people.
According to
bro.
percentage-wise,
Yes,
absolutely, yeah.
You know, that would have had a massive effect on everything.
What is now France, correct?
But they were Vikings. They settled in northern France. The
You
Normans.
have Vikings and you had French and you had people that are now what is Germany.
Yes, and they're all white
So
Europeans.
1,000 years
like I
ago, you
said.
had all these immigrants coming in and they
they
made you
weren't-
basically.
They weren't immigrants.
What
They
were
didn't.
they then?
They didn't get on a plane and come over and apply for a visa.
But
What you had
there were
was
people
a
that
huge.
immigrated.
Hold
Linguistically, an
on.
immigrant is someone who goes from one place to another, isn't it?
What you had was a huge ethnic group, which you can call the white race, white
I just
European,
like the
Oh,
way
you're talking about the
Hijab
nomads.
doesn't push it. It just makes the point. You know, usually
whatever. And eventually it broke up into different languages, different nation states, and so on. Those nation states, most of them, like France and England, for example, have been monolithic now for over 1,000 years.
I'm asking you that you said 1,000 years ago England wasn't the same place, but you're aware of Hastings, and you're aware that it was in 1066, and you're aware that the demography changed in England very dramatically after that time.
No,
So
that's incorrect. No, I will,
what do you mean?
as,
How is that incorrect?
according to all
That's well
the,
known.
hold on. According to the DNA studies, when the Anglo-Saxons came over, they changed the population to the degree of 20% of the population.
That's
When the North,
significant.
when,
It's
it
more than what
was,
you're talking about with the Muslim population.
but you're
6%
talking
Muslims.
about white Europeans coming into a country that was already white
That,
European. It
okay,
made
so
no
what
bloody
Polish
difference
people can come in
whatsoever.
then? 20% Polish can come in?
No, because I would prefer that we stopped all immigration
What you
and
prefer
started to
is
reverse it.
irrelevant to the
you
look.
know it's a caste system. That's what it is. You know, he's got different levels.
Well, actually, Darwin also had this thing where the
Yeah.
English were better than the other European whites.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, the standard here that you're using is so arbitrary and so off key, and it keeps changing depending on context without any thought. So
Every
when we
situation's
talk
going
about
to change with context. That's just normal. You can't apply the same thing to one situation and then apply it to another situation,
why not,
because
it's that's called
every
consistency.
country in the world came about via a different route, via a
You were
different structure.
consistent with the South Africa thing, which I have to commend you for, right? I mean, to be fair, you bit the bullet with that. But then when we went to America with the African Americans, you applied inconsistency and then said, cited a historical reason. But then you said,
You know, classic hijab. He's thought the different routes out, how to trap the guy.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
1,000 years ago, Britain wasn't the same, which is historically incorrect because there was major demographic and linguistic changes in British culture. So you don't seem to get the history right with these things. We need to
Well,
we
I
need
would
to know
disagree.
when is it do you think is it acceptable for immigrants to, because 1,000 years ago the whole world was a different place. I mean, people were completely different. I mean, in different countries. So at what point do you say that, okay, this is acceptable for these people to be called indigenous to this particular land at this particular time?
All I know is that my country is being overrun with mass immigration, primarily from the third world, primarily Islamic and
Yeah, yeah. But you're
African.
going into a
Uh,
talking point
and
now.
it's
Missed the point
changing.
here.
It's changing the face and the nature and the future of my country. And I'm sorry, I've dedicated my life to reversing it. And we can go around in circle. You want to argue about the minutiae and the nitty gritty and the trivialities of nationhood. At the end of the day, we're British. I'm English, and we want our country back, and we want to preserve not only the culture and the
Sure.
traditions and the
Look,
customs,
I
like
understand your
someone.
desire. I understand your desire to want to, you're a Christian man. You want some, Christianity is now a minority religion because your people are no longer satisfied with that intellectually or spiritually.
Well, I could also say the same of Saudi Arabia and all these other places,
No,
which are
you can't
becoming
actually.
very,
There's,
very Western, very, very quickly.
no, it's become Western, but they still maintain a Muslim identity. I mean, the overwhelming
Yeah,
vast
but for
majority.
how long? They might be a couple of decades behind the transition.
Well, actually, it's growing. It's according to Pew again. It's Muslims will be the majority in 2100. But
Yeah,
once
and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Look, I would support Saudi Arabian nationalists keeping Saudi Arabia a Muslim country. I would find solidarity and kindred thinking with those people 100%. I'd have
but
more in common.
Paul,
Hold on, let me make this point. I'd have
go
more
on.
in common with people like that in Saudi Arabia who wanted to preserve their country the way it's historically been than I would with white leftist politicians in Britain, who I truly hate and despise. You would say that you would probably try and paint me somehow as a racist and a hater and all this.
This is the only point that he's made that's semi-coherent. But it's only coherent in a standalone sense. If you put it in the context of the debate, it fails again.
People I truly hate is the traitors at Westminster and the traitors, the journalists in the media. They're the only people I truly hate.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I think what you're starting to mature in your thinking now. I think this conversation has.
This has been my thinking for decades.
No, but I get it. But when I've given you those.
But the problem is, his actual problem is actually with the democratic system. Which
that's a brilliant point. That's his problems with democracy.
Yeah, because all this is because of democracy.
Challenging democracy is a form of extremism.
Yeah.
In this country, the way it's defined.
It is.
So he's technically an extremist from the British establishment point of view.
Not only that, if you look at these countries you mentioned before, like Nigeria and all these other,
which is why they need fascism.
No, but they were split up and cut into nation states based on their tribes by the British. But what was it before that? It was by religion. And even within Islam, they allowed Jews and Christians to live within Islam.
To have their mini little
you can have
enclaves.
your area where you do your own thing, but just, we live in peace.
Yeah.
That's why Islam is superior to that system.
I get it, but when I've given you those thought experiments and those comparisons, I think now you're starting to realize that the situation is a lot more fluid than you think it is. Because, frankly, like I said, if you've got someone who's 75% white and 25% black, at what point do we say that this person is indigenous to the land? Like you accepted that Calvin, whatever his name is, I don't know his name is Father Calvin
Robertson.
Yeah, he's half black, half white, so he doesn't even go over 50%, and you accepted him as British. So you clearly understand that it's not necessarily to do with the color of your skin, but you don't have a formalized philosophy as to exactly where Britishhood starts and where it ends. You don't have a formalized philosophy on that. That's the problem with the movement, because you don't know.
That's your opinion. I would say it's pretty crystal clear what we stand for. We want to keep this country
We've
British.
already discussed that.
Now there's common sense. We want to keep this country British, and it's as simple as that.
You want to keep it? Are you saying you want to keep it white?
Well, would you deny that the historic British people have been a white European people?
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you the question. I mean, do you want to keep it white?
Like I said, our policy, generally speaking, because it is like you say, it's a nuanced, complex situation that's been inflicted on Britain without our consent.
No, but you're evading the question now, Paul. You're
I'm
a
trying
brave man. You're going to step in the ring. Come on, you're a brave man. Here, come on, tell me now. Do you want to keep it white or not? It's a simple yes/no answer.
Yes, I do. But like I said a moment ago, I would be happy, and most people on my side of the fence would be happy if we rolled back the clock so that Britain is still demographically.
So that you want black people to go back to Africa? Then is it?
I want black criminals to be deported. And
what about the non-criminals? What about because you just said you want to keep it white.
Like I said, right? Look, let me just. Like I said, we would roll back the tape. Okay.
Yeah.
So people who arrived 3 years ago would go first. People who arrived 60 years ago would go last.
So the England football team, for example, half of them should go back to Caribbean.
Well, how would you feel as someone? I imagine.
So basically, now he can stay if you're white, right? But he wants the Muslims to leave.
Yeah, it's very clear.
But as I said, what do we do with people like me?
Yeah, so are you.
I've got no chance. And where am I supposed to go? Because I don't have a back home, right? No sense of a back home. Maybe I could go to Ireland, because that's where Tommy Robinson's from, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know he's got an Irish passport, Tommy?
No, I didn't.
He's Irish.
I think I heard
He's
this.
Irish.
I think I heard this, yeah.
Imagine you've got loyalty.
You're not answering this question.
Well,
should we get rid of
if the Egyptian football team was
should
full
get rid
of
of Saka?
people?
Should we remove Saka? Should we send him back to Nigeria or wherever he's from?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. The first person I would deport, it was the first two people, Mohammed, would be you and Ali Dawa, and anyone you're connected to, you'd all be deported. So, but like I said, I
think we'll leave it
Even
there.
he's laughing.
Look, he knows. Look,
in between the lines, it's the Muslims.
Look, the point is, he knows what he wants, but he can't articulate it. He wants it to be white, Christian country. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know how to say it properly, and without saying it,
without sounding like a bigot,
and being politically correct.
Yeah.
But as I said, he's got no principles at all, and this is the problem with this movement.
Yeah.
That's why England currently is just a product of what he's done in the past. The world is different now. That's just how it is.
Absolutely. I mean, we have for example, in France, a lot of people from North Africa, because North Africa was colonized by France, a lot of people in Britain are from the Indian subcontinent. Why are they from the subcontinent? Because they were colonized.
Yeah.
Likewise, you get the same story throughout the European states. So the fact is, there is a history, there is a culture, there is a social context which cannot be divorced from today's politics. What they want to do is ignore that, ignore the brute fact that lots of Muslims, I don't know the exact number, but I know it's a huge amount of Muslims came over to fight in the wars.
Yeah.
With the World War One, World War Two, Muslims played a role. So
And they were on the front lines.
and they died.
They were
now,
on the front
now
lines,
here's
by
the
way.
thing. This all happened not because they had some affinity with Britain. They were part of the British Empire. So I don't understand. And you know what's so funny, John? Maybe we can end upon this. How incoherent they are. Just show how incoherent he is. On one of these racist videos, blogs, I don't know what it was. There's just people commenting, a bunch of racist people commenting, right? One of them said, it'd be great if we could get the British Empire back. And I thought, what the hell is
Yeah.
wrong with you people? You want to say we want to make this country white, we want to make this country English, we want to make this country Britain, all those blacks and brown people should get out, and at the same time, we want the empire back. Well, the empire is why we're here.
Yeah.
We were here before the empire.
You know one thing about the empire. I'll say one because you're going to be traveling to Sierra Leone soon. I used to have, just before I was Muslim, I used to have this kind of I was proud to be British. I was thinking, with the British Empire and all, this is how you're taught in school about your heritage.
Yeah.
Until I went to Sierra Leone to see exactly what the British Empire was about. It's destroyed. Sierra Leone is, no roads, no infrastructure. When you see the devastation of the empire,
They're sucking
what Britain
out all the
actually
money.
did,
Yeah. The famine in India.
totally leeching from all these countries. It was just to feed Britain back home, And to be fair,
And-
my ancestry and Paul's ancestry, we didn't benefit from the British
I was
Empire.
just about to say this. At the height of the British Empire, how much poverty was in the East End of London? Look,
We didn't benefit from colonialism.
No.
If you look, who was the one spinning the cotton? It would have been mine and Paul's. Who are the ones
making
in the coal
matchboxes.
Mine? The coal mine.
Yeah.
The point is, it's the elite, and he mentioned this. The real issue is the ones who are in charge, the ones who are just basically leeching for their own.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is the thing, they're trying to pitch the poor working class against the immigrants now. And ultimately no one's going to benefit except the people who are causing this issue. We have to learn to live peacefully. If we're going to live in such a country with different values, different communities, religions, races, we have to learn to get along.
Absolutely.
Jazakallah khair. But yeah, subhanAllah. I would like to speak to Paul someday, and
Ask him.
I actually feel-
Ask him. Listen, where do I go? Where am I going?
Where am I going? The other thing is, I'd like to see. I feel sorry for Hijab right now because Paul's going to want to smash his face in after this.
I don't think he's going to fight. I don't think he's going to
Oh,
fight.
I think he will. He swore in the Bible. He brought the Bible.
Does
up.
that mean a lot for
Look,
these people?
It does, bro. It does. Look, this is like a mubahala for these guys.
All right, khalas.
No, I rate him for that. Jazakallah khair. Check out the future videos. Like, subscribe, share the video. Assalamu alaikum.